Okay, I'm
Then
starting now.
your room is looking really good, but
It's
it's so
a
difficult.
virtual background.
Oh,
Okay, so
it's
so
looking
I'm not
still.
okay. Sorry, I'm not going to do and pick with one particular. I'm gonna do a demo today. I'm keeping it a very open, general discussion on database connection. We all have worked here with databases, and we all must have connected sometime with database. I just want to talk about different approaches of how we can connect to database. Earlier there was one thing, and even today there is one thing called ADO.NET. That is one, when I started learning about after C sharp .NET, I first learned ADO.NET. That ADO.NET is basically connecting code from what I can say, uh, basically code and database, how to connect the code and database. And something which is very interesting in that is connected and disconnected architecture. So let me share my
You
screen.
mean closing the connection or something?
No, let me explain that. Let me know if you guys are able to see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Can see it.
Okay. Okay. So what is connected and disconnected architecture in C sharp? It's, if you are a fresher or something, it's a very, very common question in interviews asked to freshers. At least it was asked to me when I was a fresher. See, how you do, just imagine what basically is, how do you talk to databases? Database is nothing but a server. It's a server where your database is hosted, and you have to do what, you have to connect with it. So it's basically a request and response thing only, right? When you say that I want to get fetch some data, I want to get my employees data from data tape, my set, what you need to do, you need to tell that you want to connect. Firstly you have to open the connection, you to the server. So you need to provide server name, server details, which database you want to connect to, your authentication, whether you're going to be using Windows authentication or SQL Server authentication, the password and all. So basically you need to provide the authentication and you need to connect. Once there is successful connection done, you send the query, whatever the query you want to do, and then you fetch the result. So if every time I need some data, I make the connection. That is called connected architecture. That I want one data. Let's say a person comes, he logs in, and he wants to fetch. Let's say I'm working in an organization and I'm into HR department, and I want to see the employee detail. I log in and click on view employee details. It connects to the database. It fetches me result. Another time I went to second page, I went come back to another page again, clicked on this. Again connection was made to the database, and then it was gave me the result. So that is connected architecture, that every time you are hitting the result. So what is basically connected architecture? You require data from the database, you need to connect with database and fetch data from there. It is generally done when you always need an updated data, that I always want to have the fresh data in myself. And but the what is the disadvantage of data connected architecture? First disadvantage is you have to make every time a connection. So it is basically, it means more server trips, basically less performance. It is not very good in performance. And it is always read forward. I will explain what is data reader in a minute, but that your connected architecture is always in a read forward mode, means you can only read data into it, but you cannot update data into this. It only fetches record one by one. And data reader is how you happen to work in the connected architecture. So just see this portion of code. This is connection. What is connection? We have used a SQL connection, which is a class, and its object connection. In the connection object, you can use this using command, which is basically we are opening the connection. And this is SQL command, which is basically defining that your command, your query, and everything. Here in SQL command, you can write the query you want to write, let's say select and everything. Or what you can do, you can also mention your procedure name, and if you have created a procedure, and this will take the connection object. Now you're opening the connection. This is what I was talking about, all making a connection to the database. SQL data reader, this is the data reader we talked about. If this is the connected architecture. And execute reader, in this command there are three types of command: execute reader, execute scaler, execute non-query. Execute reader is used and it returns you a set of basically table rows and columns, a table of data. Execute scalar when you are sure that your query will return you only one result. So if you are going to, let's say, returning only one integer or one boolean, something like that, only one value, one basically one cell, then you can use execute scalar. And execute non-query is used for insert, update, delete commands, DML commands, where you are not fetching any data but execute this. It returns you a integer, 0 or 1. Basically, that returns is, it tells you about whether it has been done successfully or not. Now here you can say it, if it has rows, basically it has returned you something, and you can read it and write one. You can say reader dot read. Here read function is basically forward. This is what we talked about, read or forward only method, which fetches data one by one. Now let me talk about what is disconnected architecture. Disconnected architecture means you don't need to connect always when you want to get data from database. I once made a connection. I fetched my table. I fetched the data I needed into in a table format, and I stored it into a data set. Data set is nothing, a set of data tables. Data table is nothing, set of rows and column. So I fetched, I have a query or I have a procedure which returned me three data tables. I stored it into my data set. And now in this data set, I can do all my operations. You can store in XML or you can anything, and now you can just, so in the same query, what we use down here, instead of writing all of this, what I could do, I again created a connection. I did it in open. I wrote my query. If you can see till here, it's same. Nothing is much different here. The three steps are same. Here, instead of using reader, we have used SQL data adapter. So the difference number one, we are not using data reader, we are using data adapter because this is not forward only. And here from data adapter, I fill this. I am not using execute reader or execute scalar or execute non-query. I'm using adapter.fill. And what I'm filling my data set with the result the adapter has created. So this is the disconnected architecture. Just give me a minute. I'm sorry. Papa. So, I'm back. This is the major difference between connected and disconnected architecture. It's a very simple picture also where you can see you send the command, it goes into data reader, it goes to your apex page and gives you the view. Whereas instead of command, here you are using data reader. From data reader, you are setting the value into the data set, and then you can use that data set. I want to use the data set to bind some 2 3 controls. I can directly send it to this. So this is the general difference between connected and disconnected architecture. It doesn't look much of a difference, but it makes a lot of difference into your performance, into your code, a lot. Disconnected architecture is something which is, um, I would say, recommended. We do not recommend using connected architecture more. Any queries?
Uh, Under that connected architecture, are we closing the connection at the end after
Yes,
fetching the data or
yes, yes,
something?
we do. Yes, we do. We do connection dot close.
Okay.
Okay, so here is a quick article which is again on same in your .NET Core, how you can use an ADO.NET. Basically, this is ADO.NET. I'm briefly taking you through this. Creating a table and stored procedure and everything, that is fine. They have created a table and they have created a stored procedure to insert, to update, and then delete and view and everything. So this is just database operations. It's done. Now our job is to connect our code with this operations. We are creating a web application, we are okay with that, right? MVC we have already done with. Okay, now one thing is connection string. Connection string, what I told you is we need authentication, how we are going to connect to the database. So this is the connection string, which is very important. It is generally added into the web configs. If you are doing a Windows application, then Also, you have app.configs there where you can add this and all. So data source is basically your server name. Dot means local host, your local server. You can use whatever server name you have. Initial catalog is your database name. So student management here is the database. I can have a database named employee. I can have a database named XYZ, anything. User ID password is what you use to connect to this data server. If you don't want to give user ID password here, this is for server SQL authentication. If you want, you can connect with um, what we can say Windows authentication. For that, there is something called trusted connection. You have to give that your trusted connection is true. If you give that, then it connects through Windows authentication. Also, a very good thing, let me tell you, in the same, let's say I have created a connection string, I've given connection. You see in my previous example, we had that connection, SQL connection. If in the same using SQL connection, I want to run two commands. I gave one query select star from employee. I gave another query select star from, let's say, mm, uh, department, right? So if we want to use same connection and give multiple commands, here there is one thing more parameter called multiple active result sets. So you have to mark it as true. So after password, and you can also write multiple active result sets equal to true, then this connection can be used for multiple commands or multiple adapters. This comes very handy in the real application. So MVC controller and everything, I'm skipping through all of that. So the controller part and all that we all know. This is important. This is what we are doing. This is the data access layer, the model, how we are going to be connecting to the model. So see, we have already done the connection string. They are taking the connection string and its name. This is the part which we saw earlier, using connection, SQL connection. Here in the command, we have done this. Now I told you we can either write the query directly or we can give the stored procedure. So here you are giving the stored procedure, but see this line. If you do not write the query directly and use the stored procedure, you have to specify the command type, that your command type is stored procedure. By default, it takes a query. Be careful on this, it's important. And generally, this is how the connections are made if you anyone is using edu.net. You open the connection, you read it, and then you pass on the values to the your model, whatever it you have defined the student class, you add it to this. And again, see, this one is a good one, insert operation. Here you can see how you can pass values to the parameter. So there is one sp8 student which is insert here, and you will be having number of parameters there. So you see parameters add with value. You have to just verify parameter name and the value you pass to it. So this is, and as I told you, if you could see here, we used execute reader because we wanted to fetch a list of tape records. Here I am doing insert, so I'm using execute non-query. Dhananjay, your question, do we close the connection? See, you can see here con.close.
Yeah.
And what I was telling earlier, multiple active results set, let's say I did not use different call functions, and I'm using the same using SQL connection. Now inside, once before closing the connection only, I want to update also. I want to perform this particular action, this insert part, just after this while loop finishes. So I have to again create a SQL command. In that time, I need multiple active result sets true. If multiple active result sets won't be true, it won't allow me in the same using the same SQL connection to use two queries. So this is again the same thing, update and delete. I'm not taking you through that. This is just how we define in the ADO.NET. Some people still use ADO.NET way, but it is not a very recommended approach in the, we can say, in enterprise version. Generally, no one directly uses the connection and creates object and add your queries directly in the code. Nowadays, everyone works with entity frameworks or mostly works with entity framework or other ways. This is something which are still used, but very less used now. Anyone have any questions here?
I
No.
think we are good.
Yeah.
Okay, I do have one question. I said that generally people do not write a query like this. They do not write select staff from, instead they use the procedure. Why is it recommended, or why people say that you should use procedure even for a single select query if I have to write? Why we should not directly write the query here, and why we should write the procedure?
To separate out the how do you say, so that if you make any changes to the database, you don't have to change your code. You can just change it in the store procedure, for example.
That's one reason. Another reason is the security purpose. Your code is generally on a different server, your database generally is on a different server. Let's say someone gets, or someone kind of breaches into a network and get access to your code. If you directly write your queries, your database is kind of exposed. They get your data table's name and your column's name and everything. But if this SP delete student, they doesn't exactly know what is my table name or what are the columns. Generally, in our tables we use a lot of joins, and we use in our procedures lot of things. So it is kind of, is from security purpose also, that your queries are not directly exposed to anyone who has the code. And second, of course, we generally try to handle most of the business logic into database,
We
so
can
that
say
it,
those are kind of encapsulated.
no, not encapsulation. This is generally that it's not, because database and your code is generally on different servers, so it does not get exposed directly, even if there is some breach of your code. And secondly, yes, so that most of the business logic resides into your database. Whenever there is, people deploy code, for deploying code there is a lot of things, the exe and all, the server, you replace the files and all, there's certain downtime you have to give. If it's a Windows application, it has to go. For procedures and everything, it's quick. You don't have to do work with lots of files and upload. You don't have to ask people to take the latest version of the file and all. So again, that is again better. So generally it's asked to put all your logic into the database side, so that it's easily configurable.
So, what I feel now after this is, because like there are basically four features, so that why we use stored procedures. First is, as you said, it's easy to maintain. The second is the security thing. It is more stronger than rather than using the direct queries. Third is it is efficient, and it is fast. Uh, and the fourth is, which you denied, basically like encapsulation, business logic or something. But I feel like, if you're wrapping all those your queries, what you exactly want to execute in that stored procedure, and you are directly calling the stored procedure and hiding every query into that particular thing, or wrapping it into one single procedure, I think that is, we can say that it is a kind of encapsulation.
Okay. Okay. Just see this article, benefit of stored procedure over inline query. See, application or database, whether to use stored procedure or inline query. This is something same thing. See, stored procedure
uh,
has been a standard. That's it. Let's go different. But the reasons, let's just take point by point. Execution, plan, retention, and reusability. One thing is that you can use the same stored procedure again and again, again and again. I have 5 forms which want to connect to this. I can use it again and again. I don't have to repeat my query. So one thing is for execution plan, SQL Server, whenever it retrieves some data, it creates an execution plan internally. And an execution plan is not generated each time for a query, but it, for the procedure, it creates an execution plan, so it saves you some time. The SQL Server will reuse execution plan of an inherit query if the subsequent query is exactly the same. Reduce network traffic, as I told, passing only name of store procedure and parameters instead of full content of query will reduce traffic between application and database, which is really helpful because it means better performance. Code reusability and better maintainability. It's saved on database level, so you can share it in between application. Now I have a huge application where there is some website, there is some normal code, there is some APIs and everything. I have to, in all the things I have to do, select and show employee details. I can use the same procedure and use it everywhere instead of writing same set of query again and again and again. Easier to troubleshoot and all. Then of course there is performance tuning, which you can do on a procedure level, which you cannot do on query level. And the which one I was talking about, better security. SQL injection attack can be avoided if the query uses parameterized input. SQL injection is an attack to inject this. Here's an example. So if you do this instead of doing this, there is a way that it, and of course permissions can be controlled in stored procedure levels. So basically, in short, procedures are always the preferred way instead of using query, even if it's a simple select one any column from a table. It's better to write that in a procedure and call your procedure than to directly write that query in your code. Sorry. I
Okay,
hope
I
it makes
agree.
sense. Okay, moving on to the next one. Let's just talk about what is entity framework. We have seen Edu.NET. Now another viable option is entity framework. Sorry. See, again with core, but there isn't much difference with entity framework core or entity framework. Before entity framework, let me first tell you what is the difference so that we are not confused by what is entity framework core. Entity framework, it used to run only on Windows, it is cross platform. So all the benefit of core is, the main benefit of core is it's cross platform. So anything, whether it's we say .NET framework core, or we say ASP.NET core, or we say entity framework core, wherever this core words join, it means it's cross platform. And it has the backward compatibility also, so you can use it with framework also. And since Windows have now decided that we have core, everything is now being added into the core functionality rather than the framework functionality. Now, what is Entity Framework Core? It is a lightweight, extensible, and cross-platform version of Entity Framework. But let's read about Entity Framework first because you want to know this. Okay, Core serve as an object relational mapper which enables .NET developers to work with .NET objects. What we do, uh, Entity Framework is nothing but creating the model. We talk about the model view controller thing. Now, instead of creating every procedure and then directly writing, opening the connection, closing the connection, what if I create a model? I connect it to the database. I can tell it what database I have. I have an option in UI interface which tells me what uh, tables I want to add, which procedures I want to add, which views I want to add, and it itself creates me the data, all of it, as an object. So what framework does is it creates everything to us in the form of object, in form of entities. A model is made up of entity classes. Entity classes is nothing but your table. And entity framework is two ways. One is code first, another is database first. Code first means you create a class, and according to the class you have created, a table gets created into your database. Another thing is database first. You create a database, you create a table, and according to the table, a class gets created into your code. So basically, you don't have to do both. One of the work gets done for you automatically. You don't have to manually write it. So that's the advantage of doing that. Okay, forget about let's just say a database. So in generally, we in Server Explorer we can define and have the servers and connections and everything. I go there, I choose my SQL Server connection, add my server name and all. This is all what we wrote there in connection string. Here we have a UI to add all of that, right? I added my connection and all data. So this is just how, see, this is here again, you have the data, see the data source name and everything. So what, where we wrote that here in code, here you can write, use here. You can also do this in your web config. So it's not important that you do this through the UI. You can also choose the traditional way always. You can go and again add your config and connection string into your web config directly. Here we have configure services, which we have talked about earlier a lot. So if you can see here, we have the add DB context, which is the one we were looking for. And here we use the use SQL server, and there again we can are defining our connection string. So this is how in your dependency injection, in your basically dependency, you can manufacture that what is the database you want to connect and server you want to connect. Now you are creating your own server and all. Let's forget about that. You can create a database and directly into your this example was basically creating it from the code to this. What I want to give you an example of is, give me a wait, just give me a minute. See, generally whenever you add an entity framework, as I told you, there are classes. You, this course is this standard student, what is this? This is nothing but each of your table. It, your all the table gets added as your connection and some all, on all of that. So this is kind of the class. The student first name, last name, standard IDs are nothing but the columns of your table. So it by default adds the class that is already generated for you from the table. You do not have to write this code. Your entity framework will automatically add this to your code. So that's the beauty of it. Another very important and very nice thing is that you do not have to write queries here into this. You can use LinkU. If you have worked before on LinkU, it makes everything very easy. You are using same where, select, list, first or default kind of things. We will go about LinkU later, maybe someday again. But this is how you talk about models and everything. Now, this is the main thing, which is the context file, the DB context, whatever your database name has been, which you have connected to the defined in your config, it creates a context file, and it creates all the procedures you have added and everything, the content here into this context file. This is again auto generated. This is it used to save and retrieve data and everything. So let me talk about the practical stuff. What happens, let's say I've added a model, I've connected it to my database, I have added 3 tables, 4 procedures, and everything is set. The challenge comes, this everyone does. No one ever face problem into this part. What part the people face problem? Let's say I went and I updated my procedure which I added into my model already. I added another field into it. I removed another field into it. What people generally do is they delete the object, they go and they update the object, add the procedure again, which is incorrect way to do it, or lengthy way of doing it. You have an way to update it, that is function imports. Whenever you add a procedure, entity framework by default adds the function imports for you, which creates the custom result and with basically your tables in this. You can just go edit into the this, and you will be able to see the custom result set. I'm sorry, I do not have an example or something ready for you. Maybe next session I'll keep something ready for you for to see that how you can do this. But just to be give you the concept here, It's very easy. You just have to, whenever you update your database context, it automatically refreshes your tables. Tables do not have a problem. They are always get refreshed. If you have added a new column to your table, it will get automatically added into your code. The problem always comes with procedures. If you have added a new column into your procedure, or if you have removed a column from your procedure, it does not get updated automatically. Even though it says, yes, we are refreshing your procedures, it does not refresh your procedure exactly. So refresh your procedures. Remember always, you have to edit your function import. You have to edit the import, and in import you just have to say update, and it will update and add or remove the columns it has. And that's easy. That's really easy from the UI, from the model browser. Just I'll remember to show you it in the next session. So with entity framework, things are really easy. You just have to deal on how to do it into your code, uh, SQL type, and you don't have to write any code into this. You just have to go and update your model. Your procedures get added, and then you can use it directly as you want to. Now, the practical way of doing this, people generally never directly use this on context files. They have multiple wrappers around it. Generally, what they do, if you are using a WCF to, let's say, connect to your server, what they do, they let the WCF call a business layer, which is internally calling your this context layer, this data layer, which is calling you this. So in general, this is a very simple concept, but what makes it little complex, or we can say lengthy, is that in practical approach, if you see applications, there are multiple layers which talks around it, because people, for the security reasons of course, and of performance reasons, do not directly connect to the server. They connect either through the remoting, or they connect through WCF, or they connect through web service, and those service talks to your database. So there are internal layers which gets added, and which are nothing, just wrappers around it. This is the reason generally people feel entity framework is very vast and has a lot of things, but entity framework is nothing but adding model in the UI, and everything is sorted. And you just has to learn to use this kind of, basically this symbol. This is lambda expression. This is used in LinkU. So you just have to learn a little bit of LinkU to work with entity framework. That how you can sort your data, like whether I want to, if I have to, let's say, filter out my some data, I can use property this here dot where clause. I can get it into the list and all. So this is how this works. uh, this is what I have prepared a little bit for what I want to talk about the databases. I know it's a very simple and just an overview, but I wanted to give an overview, and maybe anything people want to go in detail with, we can do it later on. So please, any queries, any questions, please feel free to ask.
Will it be possible to have a demo on it somewhere in the next sessions
Yeah,
or in the
sure.
upcoming
Actually, I would have to create for to demonstrate this. I had to actually will have to create some proper database and everything. And right now, my SQL, my apart from my office on my personal laptop, the my database server was not working. That's why I could not prepare a demo. Maybe next time I'll show it with from my official one only a little bit. This is the reason I could not prepare a demonstration for this entity framework today. But yeah, maybe next time.
Okay.
Anyone else? Any question, any feedback, and anything apart from this?
Is everyone there?
Mhm. If there's no other questions about the database, maybe we can spend some time discussing future sessions.
Yeah, please.
Um, do we want to
Exactly, we
continue?
can.
We already talked about the next session.
Actually, like In the earlier sessions, a couple of guys, I think, were there who actually wants to have a session on database creation and like how, like the actual mapping thing. Uh, and today I also mentioned like, can we have that session as well? So I think one session can be planned, 1 or 2 sessions on the database thing, and after that if anything pops up we can take that forward.
Okay, so what we actually need here is definitely what my agenda is. Firstly, I want to have feedback from people. We have almost done with 12 weeks of ASP.NET Core and almost 7 6 7 weeks of uh, uh, I think 5 weeks of the current session and 3 sessions before, 8 weeks of Angular. So I want to see that there isn't much attendance into this. In our group we have almost 40 people, but I do not see much attendance into .NET Core and everything. Even some people who are joining up from this. So first I want to ask if because see it takes a lot of time and effort for people who are preparing, right? Even if it's a small group I do not mind it, but I want to see know that if is it benefiting everyone. So we can, of course, I have asked people on WhatsApp, maybe we can create a feedback form or something like that, and let's ask people to come up with suggestions and how they think what better we can do, come back with the topics they want to learn so that we can do. We, as you know, you and I are having facing problem asking people to come and volunteer. So for that I really need that. This has been great for me. I want to see is it benefiting others also, and then let everyone come in, chime in, and see what they want to learn. What's the next topic? Of course, we can do a database session. Apart from the database session in the learning plan, like we created this plan. Do we want to continue with core only? We want to go and extend more videos of the tutorial, or we want to go with another tutorial or another topic? What is basically some people want to learn? So,
uh, y-
yes, Ananja.
if you want you can go ahead, I can mention that later.
No, no, it's okay. Please chime in.
Because like in the earlier sessions we had couple of sessions on API creation or something, not exactly the API creation but yeah, a couple of things on API. So I'm not that exactly sure like how much time it would take to create exactly a live API that will work, or basically a demo API. But yeah, it would be great if we can have that session as well. Means
That's good. That's good. So let's put this into the group. Let's ask people how many of them are interested in a web
uh,
API session, and who
I
can
can.
volunteer. Who, of course. So let's put it into the group. Let's see if we have at least 5 6 people interested for this. Someone interested to do the session for us and all. So I'm just my 2 cents on this is let's take more feedback from people before going forward and planning and doing all those things. What do you say, Daphne?
Mm, yeah, I guess for once maybe we can just mute ourselves and have a free discussion. Should we just stop recording for now?
Yes, I
I
was
can
also
see.
about to say that.